Good morning and welcome to Wholesome Roots. It is supposed to be a very hot day today here in Georgia. We have been dealing with some extremely high temperatures. The heat index over 100 almost every day this week. It's making me wonder if it's part of what's making me feel so yucky. And I'm taking extra precautions to make sure that I don't have heat stroke or any other heat related illnesses. So it is important that you use caution out there in the heat of the summer and always be conscious and aware of your body and what it's trying to tell you. Well, it looks like the heat has definitely impacted the ducks because they have been molting. They've been shedding feathers. They don't look like they're molting, but their wings do look a little bit less feathered, and there's lots of feathers around on the ground, especially over there where that hay area is. And it's very important that you make sure that your animals all have access to fresh, clean water during these high heat temperatures. As you notice, we always have extra water out for our animals that is refilled daily. The goats have this big trough here. The dogs have a water bowl and 2 5-gallon buckets just in case. The bucks and the ducks and the turkey have a fresh 5-gallon bucket always added, and then that's yesterday's 5-gallon bucket. As you see, it's dirty because the ducks have used it. This right here is not their water source for drinking. This is their pool. This was filled and cleaned yesterday. So if it looks dirty, it's because they're ducks, and they will get it scrubbed out again next week, and they will have it refilled throughout the week as needed. But there's always a fresh bucket to be found in every animal paddock we have. I'm tripping over a fence, sorry. See that? Every morning they have fresh, clean water added to their paddock for all of them to enjoy. And yet, the fact that they are ducks, they are still going to drink the muddy water because that's what ducks do. They're silly, very silly creatures. They prefer the muddy water. Another very important feature to remember for your animals is to always have shade available for them. We try to have our pasture set up in an area where there's at least one tree for shade, but they always have their outdoor shelter as well in case they need more shade protection. And for rain if a storm comes through that we weren't expecting and weren't able to put them up in time. The fact is that more often than not, us homesteaders are really good about making sure our animals have fresh water and shade and stay out of the main heat of the day. That is not always possible for us. We, as homesteaders, have many chores that need to be done throughout the day, and you cannot always do those first thing in the morning and in the evening. And you very often have to be outside in the middle of the day at the highest temperature. Even right now, it is not even noon yet, and it is already over 90 degrees here in Georgia. So some of the things to keep aware of for heat illness is to try to prevent it. Stay cool, stay hydrated. Dehydration is one of the leading causes of heat illness, and it can lead to even more complications than that, and you can even end up in the hospital. So make sure that you always have fresh, cool water to drink. Take breaks often when the heat index is over 100 degrees. You don't want to overdo it. Then be aware of how you're feeling and how others around you are feeling. Sometimes people who are experiencing heat illness don't feel it until it's too late. So be aware when you're with other people working out in the garden or in the homestead or at work, depending on your job, that you are aware of what's happening to the people around you as well. So heat illness can start with something as simple as dehydration and lead to heat syncope, where you feel faint and pass out even. Both my daughter Vivian and I are very susceptible to heat syncope. We've both had many spells our entire lives with just fainting. Not usually all the way. Usually we start to fall and we catch ourselves and we sit down. And it's kind of scary because it's happened quite a few times to my daughter where she falls all the way down, and it's very frightening to see your child go through that. But she's a big girl now and she's very aware of it, and she deals with it the best she can, and she avoids high heat situations. Then the other is heat exhaustion. That is when you begin sweating profusely. You may have rapid breathing. You can deal with heat syncope with that heat exhaustion, and you get to the point where you just can't move anymore. You just can't keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. You literally are exhausted. And that can happen over a period of a couple of days of being exposed to high temperatures, or just in one day's time. Then the worst one that we really watch out for is heat stroke. So with heat stroke, you actually stop sweating. Your skin will become dry, and that is a huge symptom. If you've been out in the sun and you've been hot and you've been sweating crazy, and all of a sudden your sweating stops and you start to dry off and you haven't done anything to cause that to happen, you want to seek medical professional help at that time. Call your doctor, go to the urgent care, whatever you have to do to make sure that you take care of yourself. It is very important that we all take care of ourselves and those around us when we're in the heat. People often say, well, why don't you take your kids out in the garden with you to get your gardening done? You know, having kids shouldn't prevent you from gardening. Well, unfortunately, I live in Georgia, so it is very difficult on children and elderly to deal with this heat. Plus, we live right outside the Atlanta perimeter area, and we actually have ozone warnings where our air quality is so poor that they recommend that you stay inside. So we deal with that in the summer, and it is part of living in the South in Georgia, and it is something that we are aware of. And I think that's the biggest, most important factor, is to be aware of these things. Even if you live up north where it's cooler temperatures, you can have a hot day and become heat exhausted and have a heat stroke. It's not limited to just the South. Everybody needs to be aware of this, especially if you're working outside in the sun and the heat. So with all that being said, today's video is more of a PSA than a vlog. Sorry about that, but because of some of the symptoms I've been experiencing this week, I'm attributing some of it to the heat. So I'm going in. As much as I want to get in the garden and pull a million weeds, and that's really what would make my heart happy, I know that I have to go in. It is too hot out here, and it's getting hotter as the minutes go by. But I appreciate all your kind words and support, and please check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, and we'll see you next time on Wholesome Roots.